Hey guys, it's Nathaniel for Thursdays on A Cure for Your Post-Potter Depression, and here are my 5 Potter points. For my first point, I want you to just take into consideration how the Dursleys must have felt as they saw Harry drive off in a car escaping their house. Now, I suppose this could possibly be considered normal, if not for 2 factors. One, that Harry had not been barred into his room, every door locked, every window caged. And number 2, if the car hadn't been parked outside the 2nd-story window of their house. Okay, clearly the Dursleys know magic exists because they're harboring a wizard, and Petunia's sister was a witch, and it's all part of them. They know it's there, they just don't want to acknowledge it. But I guarantee you that they have not seen anything this magical. That was a good way of putting it. By that I mean they haven't seen their ordinary everyday objects like a car or a Ford magicked into flying and stealing their nephew away. I love the part where it says that Uncle Vernon and Aunt Petunia and Dudley were hanging out the window, gaping at Harry as he flew away in this magical car. Full of gingers, nonetheless. After Harry gets to the Weasleys, it's really a cultural shock. It gives you a more personal touch to the wizarding community. I mean, before this, you've had Hagrid and them, who aren't really wizards, and then you've had the school, where everything is very formal. They're all in their dress robes, or not their dress robes, but their school robes and their hats, and the house gives it a more, well, housey sort of feel. Which leads me to point number 2. You'd think that after all of these magical spells and everything that Harry's seen in the house, the flying car, the pots scrubbing themselves, all of this nonsense with Mrs. Weasley, it seems kind of odd that they have to go out and hand-pick these gnomes and wing them around their head and fling them over the garden gate. Now, the Weasley boys have to do this as a punishment, but I think it would be kind of fun grabbing the little guys by their feet and winging them around and tossing them so that they can't make their way back. It just goes to show you that it's what you consider punishment that actually is punishment. Point number 3. With all this nonsense about Dobby casting the hover charm and getting Harry an official warning from the Ministry of Magic, and then you go to the Weasley's house where there's magic happening all over the place, I want to know how the Ministry regulates the use of underage magic. We learn later in the books that magic is monitored by location, not necessarily by each spell cast, and I'm wondering what the station that detects all this magical usage looks like. I'm sort of picturing this huge operation board with lights flashing all over, you know, like in the old movies when they had to actually connect calls and stuff like that. Maybe it's like a big map of the whole world, or maybe just London, I don't know, and it has little light-up points, and, ooh, magic is happening there, ooh, magic is happening there, ooh, magic is happening there, ooh, there's no adults there, that must be an underage wizard. And our 4th point brings us back to the Weasleys, who I love, like anyone in their right mind should. Well, I love the kids, Ginny and Ron and Fred and George, they're all great, sure. I really, really like the 2 parents, Mr. and Mrs. Weasley. Mrs. Weasley, for all the things my mom mentioned, how just, she's Mrs. Weasley, you can't not like her. But Mr. Weasley, I really feel like J.K. Rowling wrote that character in such a way so as to poke fun at her really loyal, faithful audience. Amanda and Alex. No, by that I mean there are readers, muggles, who are obsessed with this magical world, with wizarding and everything about it, and they go in and they find out more about it, which is great. But Mr. Weasley is exactly the same, just a wizard looking at muggles. He's fascinated with spark plugs and outlets, and I think at one point, I don't know if it's in the movie or the book, he asks Harry what exactly the function of a rubber duck is. And it's kind of funny to me, because a wizard looking at muggles' fascination of magic would be exactly how we view Mr. Weasley, like, really? Really, you want to know about that? What's so special to know about that? My 5th and final point takes us into a little bit of a spoiler section. It's mainly just spoilers for the end of this book, and little sort of minor-ish spoilers for the rest of the series, so this is not one of my big, huge spoiler sections that you do not want to read if you haven't read any more. However, if you want to keep the rest of the series a surprise, like I wish you would, you may click here. This will take you to the end of the video. Alright, now that all the stragglers have found their way to the end of the video, I'm going to talk about Dobby. But you see, I'm not going to say the usual things about Dobby, how he's ugly, how he's enslaved, how he's the very being of slavery. Now, for those of us who have read further into the series, we know that only the Death Eaters call him the Dark Lord. Of course, I'm not implying that Dobby's a Death Eater, nothing like that. It's just Dobby comes from the Malfoys, which we later find out, And of course he would have picked up that language from the Malfoys, who we suspect now are Death Eaters, and is confirmed later that they previously were Death Eaters. So it's not much of a hint, but we know now that either Dobby has come from someone with inside knowledge from Voldemort and is truly trying to warn Harry, which he is, or he's come from Voldemort with that trap that Fred and George suggested. Well, anywho, I'm done for now. I hope you're enjoying our coverage so far of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and I know I asked you this all of the last book. I don't know if you did. If you did, good for you. If you didn't, grab Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. We will be reading it for 6 weeks, I think. I think that's the schedule. 3 chapters a week for 6 weeks, and we will have this one cleaned off, and maybe we'll give you some further insight if you read along. Who knows? Until next week, we're all still here. We're still reading.